The first bullet passed through Sebastian Romano's reflection before Ava Lane ever learned his name. She heard the glass break, not loudly at first. It sounded like a champagne flute cracking somewhere behind the fog. A brief, sharp sound swallowed by the groan of boats and the distant cry of gulls over San Francisco Bay. Then the window behind the handsome stranger exploded. Ava dropped her charcoal. The man she had been drawing did not flinch. He remained seated on the wooden bench near Pier 39, one ankle resting over the opposite knee, dressed in a black overcoat that looked too expensive for the damp waterfront. His dark hair shifted in the wind. His expression remained calm as fractured glass rained across the pavement behind him. Only his eyes moved. They lifted from Ava's unfinished portrait and fixed on the reflection in the storefront window beside her. A second shot struck the metal railing. People screamed. Tourists scattered between souvenir stands and seafood restaurants. A woman abandoned a stroller. A street musician dropped his trumpet. Fog rolled through the chaos, turning running bodies into pale shadows. Ava stood frozen behind her easel. The stranger rose. He did not run away from the bullets. He walked toward her. "Get down," he said. His voice was quiet enough that she almost failed to hear it. Ava looked at him as if he were insane. Another shot cracked through the harbor. The man reached her in 3 strides, caught her around the waist, and pulled her behind the stone base of a waterfront monument. She collided with his chest. His coat smelled faintly of rain, smoke, and something clean and dark. His body covered hers as another bullet tore through her canvas. The unfinished image of his face split down the center. Ava's breath stopped. The man's hand rested behind her head, shielding her from fragments of wood. He was not breathing hard. He was not panicking. He seemed less like a target than a man mildly inconvenienced by death. Black SUVs appeared through the fog. They came fast, tires screaming against wet pavement. Men in dark suits poured from the vehicles, moving with disciplined precision. Several formed a wall around the stranger. Others disappeared into the crowd, scanning rooftops and windows. One of them approached. Mr. Romano. So that was his name. Romano. Ava knew it. Everyone in San Francisco knew it. Sebastian Romano owned shipping terminals, hotels, private security companies, restaurants, and half the luxury real estate surrounding the bay. Newspapers called him an investor. Federal investigators called him untouchable. People who spoke more honestly called him the Mafia Boss of the West Coast. Ava pushed away from him. Sebastian released her immediately. His eyes remained on the torn portrait. "You drew the window," he said. She stared at him. "Someone just tried to shoot you. You drew what was inside the reflection." "I draw what I see." A bodyguard picked up the damaged canvas and turned it toward Sebastian. Ava looked at it for the first time since the shooting. Behind Sebastian's charcoal likeness, in the sketched reflection of the storefront glass, she had drawn a narrow face beneath a baseball cap. She had barely noticed the figure while working. He had appeared as only a few lines in the background. But now, with the bodyguard holding the canvas beneath the gray harbor light, the face seemed unmistakable. Sebastian studied it. Something changed in his expression. Not fear. Recognition. "Who is he?" Ava asked. Sebastian looked at her. "Someone who will come for you now." Cold moved through her. "I don't know anything. You saw his face. I drew a stranger in a reflection. That is enough." Sirens approached from several blocks away. Sebastian reached inside his coat. Ava tensed. He removed a leather wallet, pulled out a stack of bills, and placed them on the broken easel. She looked down. There had to be several $1,000s. "My portraits are $40, she said. "I'm buying this one. It has a bullet hole in it. That makes it more valuable." One of his men took the canvas. Ava grabbed its edge. "No." Every bodyguard near them became still. Sebastian's gaze dropped to her hand. No one touched something he had claimed. Ava could see that in the faces around them. She tightened her grip. "It's my work," she said. "You don't get to take it because you threw money at my easel." The fog curled between them. Sebastian looked at her with a calm so complete it became threatening. Then he released the canvas. "Keep it." His men exchanged glances. Ava had the strange sense that Sebastian Romano had just done something none of them had ever seen before. He turned toward the SUV. Before entering, he looked back at her. "Do not go home tonight." Ava swallowed. Was that advice? No. The door closed behind him. The convoy disappeared into the fog, leaving shattered glass, screaming tourists, and several $1,000s beneath Ava's trembling hand. That night, she went home anyway. Ava lived above a closed laundromat in North Beach, in a narrow apartment filled with canvases, thrift store furniture, and plants that leaned toward the single window. She locked the door behind her, placed the damaged portrait against the wall, and told herself she would call the police. Then, she noticed the black sedan parked across the street. A man sat inside. He was not hiding. Ava pulled the curtain closed. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello? You should have listened." Sebastian's voice. Ava moved away from the window. "Are you watching my apartment? I am protecting it. There is a difference. Not tonight." She looked at the portrait propped against the wall. The face in the reflection seemed to watch her. "Who is he?" Silence. "Mr. Romano." "Sebastian. I'm not calling you Sebastian. You already did." She hated that he was right. "Who is the man in my drawing?" "A professional." "A killer?" "Yes." The simple answer chilled her more than evasion would have. "And he was trying to kill you." "He still is." "Why would he come after me?" "Because you can identify him. I drew 6 lines and a shadow. You drew enough." Ava pressed her free hand to her forehead. "Then tell the police. The police will sell your location before sunrise." "That sounds paranoid." "It is experience." She looked through a gap in the curtain. The sedan remained across the street. "What happens now?" "You pack a bag." "No." "Ava." She stiffened. "How do you know my name?" "You signed the portrait." "That does not explain how you found my apartment." "No," he said. "It does not." The line went dead. 3 minutes later, someone knocked on her door. Ava grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter. "Ava Lane?" a man called from the hallway. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I work for Mr. Romano. I'm not going anywhere. You do not have to. I was instructed to remain outside." She opened the door 2 inches, chain still fastened. Daniel was in his 40s, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes and a scar along his jaw. He held no visible weapon. "Did he also instruct you to follow me forever?" she asked. "Only until the man in your portrait is found." "And how long will that take?" Daniel's expression remained neutral. "That depends on whether Mr. Romano wants him alive." Ava closed the door. She did not sleep. At 3 in the morning, she woke to the smell of smoke. Her front window glowed orange. Ava ran into the living room. The black sedan across the street was burning. Daniel Mercer lay on the sidewalk beside it. A figure in dark clothes stood over him. The figure looked up. Even through the rain and smoke, Ava recognized the narrow face from the portrait. The assassin raised a gun toward her window. Ava dropped. The glass exploded above her. She crawled toward the hallway as bullets struck the walls. The apartment filled with plaster dust. Paintings fell. One of her plants shattered across the floor. The front door burst inward. Ava screamed and swung the kitchen knife. A hand caught her wrist. Sebastian stood in the doorway. Rain darkened his hair. Blood marked the collar of his white shirt, though she could not tell if it belonged to him. His eyes moved over her face, her arms, her body. "Are you hit?" "No." "Look at me." "I said no. Look at me." His hand closed around her jaw, not painfully, but with enough authority to still her panic. His gaze searched hers. "Can you walk?" "Yes." He removed his coat and wrapped it around her. Behind him, armed men moved through the stairwell. Several shots echoed from the street. Ava pulled away. "Daniel is outside. He is alive. You brought this to my home." Sebastian's face hardened. "I told you not to come here. You don't get to blame me for being attacked." His eyes flickered. The anger vanished, replaced by something quieter. "You're right." The apology was so unexpected, Ava stopped moving. Sebastian took her hand. "Come with me." She looked at the ruined apartment, smoke drifting through broken glass, her paintings scattered across the floor. "I don't have a choice, do I?" "You always have a choice." Another bullet struck the outer wall. Sebastian stepped between Ava and the window before the sound finished, but not enough time to make the wrong one. He led her down the stairs. Outside, the street had become a battlefield of rain, smoke, and headlights. Romano's men surrounded the building. Daniel was being lifted into an SUV. Conscious, but bleeding from the shoulder. The assassin was gone. Sebastian placed Ava into the back of an armored vehicle and entered beside her. The moment the door closed, silence swallowed the violence outside. Ava sat against black leather, still wearing his coat. Sebastian turned toward her. There was a cut near his temple. "You're bleeding," she said. "It is nothing. That is what people say when they expect everyone else to worry for them. No one worries for me." The answer came without self-pity. It sounded like fact. The vehicle moved. Ava looked out at her burning apartment. Where are you taking me? Somewhere secure. You mean somewhere you control? Yes. At least he did not lie. The Romano penthouse occupied the highest 6 floors of a tower, overlooking the Bay Bridge. Ava had expected gold, marble, and vulgar displays of wealth. Instead, the space was almost empty. Black stone floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Dark furniture. No family photographs. No clutter. No evidence that a human being lived there beyond a single glass of whiskey on a table. The city glittered below like another world. Ava stood near the windows in borrowed clothes, while a doctor stitched the cut near Sebastian's temple. Daniel was in surgery at a private clinic. No one had told Ava whether he would survive. She watched Sebastian refuse pain medication. You should sit, the doctor told her. I'm fine. Sebastian's eyes lifted to hers. She is not. Ava glared at him. Stop speaking for me. The doctor finished and left quickly. Sebastian remained seated, sleeves rolled to his forearms. A faint scar crossed one wrist. There were others beneath it. Ava noticed paint on his cuff. Black paint. No, not paint. Charcoal from her portrait. You still have it, she said. The drawing? Yes. It is evidence. That is not what I meant. His expression did not change. Ava folded her arms. What happens to me now? You remain here until the shooter is found. No. He found your apartment within hours. And whose fault was that? A muscle moved in Sebastian's jaw. She had expected anger. Instead, he looked toward the city. Mine. The admission made it harder to hate him. Ava walked closer. Why did he recognize me as a threat? He did not. He shot at me. He was not trying to kill you. She went still. How do you know? If he wanted you dead, you would be dead. The certainty in his voice was terrifying. Then what was he doing? Testing my response. Ava stared at him. Meaning? He wanted to know whether I would come for you. And you did. Yes. Why? Sebastian looked at her for several silent seconds. Because the portrait belongs to me. Ava's anger returned instantly. I am not the portrait. I know. Do you? He rose. The space between them narrowed. Sebastian was taller than she had realized at the waterfront. He did not have to touch her to make Ava aware of every inch separating them. You are here because a man tried to put a bullet through your window, he said. You are alive because I reached you first. You may resent me. You may insult me. You may walk through every room in this building and tell yourself the doors are a prison. But until he is found, you do not leave without protection. His voice remained calm. That calm felt more dangerous than shouting. Ava lifted her chin. And if I walk out anyway? His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. I will follow you. The next morning, Ava discovered 3 guards outside her bedroom and all her art supplies arranged in the penthouse library. Her easel had been repaired. Her paints had been replaced. Even the cheap brushes she favored had been purchased in the exact sizes she used. Sebastian stood near the fireplace reading a file. You went through my apartment, she said. My men recovered what was not destroyed. You replaced everything. Yes. I didn't ask you to. No. She approached the table. Beneath the new brushes lay a sketchbook she had not seen in years. Its leather cover was cracked. A small blue star had been drawn in the corner. Ava touched it. Where did you get this? Sebastian closed the file. It was in storage. My storage unit was emptied 2 years ago. I know. Ava looked at him slowly. How? He said nothing. She opened the sketchbook. Most pages contained childhood drawings, buildings, faces, hands, fragments of memory. Ava had been 8 or 9 when she made them. One page had been carefully removed. She felt the torn edge. What was here? Sebastian's expression became unreadable. You do not remember? No. He turned away. The conversation was over, but Ava knew he had the missing page. For the next week, she lived beneath Sebastian's protection and against every instinct she possessed. She was allowed to paint, to use the library, to walk on the private roof garden, and to argue with him at dinner. She was not allowed to leave alone. Sebastian spent his days in meetings behind closed doors. Men entered, frightened, and left pale. Phones rang at every hour. Once, Ava passed the study and heard him calmly order someone's warehouses closed across 3 states. Another night, she saw him return with blood on his knuckles. He stopped when he noticed her in the hallway. Their eyes met. Ava looked at his hand. Did you kill someone? No. Did you hurt someone? Yes. Why? They sold your address. The answer hollowed the air between them. Ava stepped closer. Sebastian's breathing changed almost imperceptibly. You hurt someone because of me. I hurt someone because he betrayed me. That is not the same thing. It is to me. She reached toward his hand. Sebastian caught her wrist before she touched him. The movement was instinctive, swift, controlled. His fingers closed around her pulse. They stood inches apart. Ava could feel the warmth of him, the tension beneath his stillness, the way his gaze darkened when she did not pull away. Does it hurt? She asked. No. You lie badly. No one has ever said that to me. Maybe no one wanted to survive saying it. Something almost like amusement moved through his eyes. Then he released her. The interruption left Ava strangely unsteady. Sebastian turned away first. Go to bed. You do not give me orders. Tonight I do. Why? He looked back at her. Because if you stand that close to me again, I may forget why you are here. Ava's breath caught. Sebastian entered his study and closed the door. The next morning, she began painting him. Not the feared man from newspapers. Not the mafia boss surrounded by black cars and armed guards. She painted him seated alone beneath the enormous penthouse windows, with the city spread below him like a kingdom he could command but never enter. Around him she built a golden cage. The bars were made from skyscrapers, shipping cranes, guns, signatures, and the hands of men reaching for his power. Sebastian sat at the center, wearing a crown that looked painfully heavy. Ava worked in secret for 5 days. She told herself the portrait was retaliation, a way of taking back control, a way of showing him that she saw through the expensive suits and quiet threats. But each night, as she painted the shadows beneath his eyes and the tension in his hands, the portrait became less cruel. It became honest. She saw his loneliness. She hated that she saw it. Ava convinced one of the guards to deliver the painting to Lena Park, a gallery owner who had exhibited Ava's work before. Ava expected a private showing. Lena posted it online. Within hours, the portrait went viral. The King in the Cage. That was the title Lena gave it. Millions of people saw Sebastian Romano painted as a lonely ruler imprisoned by his own empire. Political commentators mocked him. Art critics praised Ava. Rival criminals circulated altered versions of the image with insults beneath them. By evening, every television in the penthouse displayed the painting. Ava stood in the living room while Sebastian watched the news in silence. His men were terrified. Daniel, his shoulder bandaged but healing, stood near the elevator and refused to meet Ava's eyes. Sebastian muted the television. "Leave us," he said. Everyone obeyed. The elevator closed. Ava and Sebastian remained alone before the towering windows. "I suppose you are going to destroy it," she said. "No." "Threaten the gallery?" "No." "Threaten me?" His gaze moved over her face. "Was that what you wanted?" Ava swallowed. "I wanted you to understand how it feels to be watched. And do you believe you understand me now? I understand that everyone is afraid of you." That was not the question. She held his gaze. "I think you are afraid of being known." The city lights reflected across his face. Sebastian crossed the room. Ava forced herself not to step back. He stopped close enough that her breath touched his collar. "You believe a painting gives you permission to enter places I keep locked?" "No. I believe you entered my life without permission. I returned the favor." His eyes dropped to her lips. "You humiliated me in front of every family that wants me dead. I painted what I saw. You painted loneliness. You were alone. You painted a cage. You built one." His hand rose. For one suspended second, Ava thought he would touch her face. His fingers stopped near her cheek. He did not make contact. "Be careful," he said softly. "Is that a threat?" "No." His hand lowered. "It is the closest thing to pleading I know how to do." Sebastian bought the gallery the next morning. Not the painting. The entire gallery. The building, the contracts, the debt, and the neighboring property. When Ava arrived with 6 guards behind her, Lena met her at the door with stunned eyes. "He paid 4 times what it was worth," Lena whispered. Sebastian stood beneath the king in the cage. He had arranged a private exhibition. Ava walked toward him. "You bought the gallery." "Yes." "Why?" "To control access. To the painting, to you." The answer infuriated her. "I am not an asset." "No." "Then stop acting like I belong to you." Sebastian looked toward the entrance. A man in a navy suit was speaking to Lena. Ava recognized him as Julian Cross, an art collector who had flirted with her at previous exhibitions. Julian smiled when he saw her. "Ava, there you are." He took her hand and kissed her cheek. Sebastian became completely still. Julian admired the portrait. It is extraordinary. I always knew someone would finally make Romano look human. Ava felt the temperature in the room change. Sebastian approached. Mr. Cross. Julian's smile weakened. Romano. Sebastian's gaze dropped to Julian's hand, still resting at Ava's waist. Julian removed it. Ava almost smiled. Almost. I would like to take Ava to dinner, Julian said. Sebastian looked at her. Not at Julian. Ava understood the challenge. She could say yes, simply to prove she was free. She almost did. Then she saw something behind Sebastian's control. Not anger. Fear. It vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. I'm not available tonight, she said. Julian nodded and left. Sebastian waited until the gallery door closed. You wanted to go with him. I wanted to see whether you would stop me. I would not have. That is a lie. Yes. She turned toward the portrait. Why does this bother you so much? He stood beside her. Because you saw me. People see you every day. No, they see what I allow. Ava looked at the painted crown, the golden bars, the dark eyes. What did I see? Sebastian did not answer. Instead, he said, the man in the reflection has been identified. Ava faced him. Who is he? Vincent Vale. The name made her blood turn cold. That is impossible. Sebastian watched her reaction carefully. Ava stepped back. Vincent Vale had been her adoptive brother. He had been 14 when Ava arrived at Street Catherine's home for children. He had protected her from bullies, stolen food for her, taught her how to climb onto the roof to see the city lights. He had disappeared when she was 11. Everyone told her he ran away. Ava had believed he was dead. You know him, Sebastian said. He was my brother. The gallery seemed to tilt. Sebastian reached toward her. Ava moved away. You knew, she whispered. I suspected. You brought me into your home knowing the assassin was my brother? I brought you into my home because he was using you. You do not know that. He fired at your window. He missed. Deliberately. The word struck her. Sebastian continued. He wanted you frightened enough to remain close to me. Why? To get inside my defenses. Ava shook her head. Vincent would never use me. You have not seen him in 22 years. And you think that means you know him better? I know men like him. You mean killers like him? Yes. You are one of them. Silence fell. Sebastian's face closed. Ava saw the exact moment she heard him. He looked toward the painting. You should return to the penthouse. No. Ava, you lied to me. I withheld a possibility until I could confirm it. That is what powerful men call lying when they want to sound reasonable. She walked toward the door. Sebastian did not stop her. But the guards followed. For 2 days, Ava refused to speak to him. She stayed in the penthouse guest room, searched old newspaper archives, and tried to understand how the boy who once gave her half his blanket could have become an assassin. Vincent Vale appeared in articles under several names. Intelligence leaks connected him to political killings in Europe, cartel executions in Mexico, and the deaths of 2 federal witnesses. No clear photograph existed, only sketches. Every one of them resembled the face in Ava's portrait. On the 3rd night, she found a white envelope beneath her bedroom door. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. It showed Ava asleep in the penthouse library. The picture had been taken from inside the room. On the back, someone had written, "He will bury you with his secrets." Ava carried the photograph to Sebastian's study. He was standing over a map of the city with Daniel and 3 other men. Everyone fell silent when she entered. She placed the Polaroid on the table. Sebastian looked at it. His expression did not change. That was worse than anger. "Clear the room," he said. Daniel hesitated. "Sebastian?" "Now." The men left. Sebastian examined the photograph. "He was inside," Ava said. "Yes. You said this place was secure." "It was. Until you became important enough to expose the weakness." The admission frightened her. "How did he get in?" Sebastian looked toward the windows. Someone allowed him. A traitor inside Sebastian's organization. Ava wrapped her arms around herself. "He is watching me." Sebastian crossed the room. "Not anymore. You cannot promise that." "Yes, I can." "How?" "Because tonight I move you somewhere no one knows exists." The safe house stood on a cliff above the Pacific, 3 hours south of the city. It was built into dark rock, invisible from the coastal road. Storm waves crashed below. Steel shutters covered the windows. Only Sebastian, Ava, Daniel, and 2 trusted guards knew the location. Forced proximity became absolute. There was 1 kitchen, 1 sitting room, and 2 bedrooms separated by a narrow hallway. Sebastian worked through the nights. Ava painted during the day. Neither apologized. Neither left. The storm grew stronger. On the second evening, the power failed. Emergency lights turned the house red. Ava found Sebastian near the kitchen window, speaking into a satellite phone. They hit Pier 9, he said. Shut down the southern route. No retaliation until I authorize it. He ended the call. What happened? Ava asked. Vincent killed 6 of my men. She stared at him. Because of me? Because of me. You keep saying that. Because it remains true. Lightning illuminated the ocean. Sebastian opened a bottle of whiskey. Ava watched him pour a glass. Did you know Vincent at the orphanage? His hand stopped. It was the first visible crack in his control. You were there, Ava said. He looked at her. She removed the old sketchbook from beneath her sweater and placed it on the counter. The missing page, she said. It was a drawing of you. Sebastian said nothing. I remembered this afternoon. A boy sitting on the chapel steps. He had blood on his shirt and would not tell anyone who hurt him. The storm struck the windows. Ava moved closer. You were called Bastian. His eyes changed. No one had called him that in decades. You gave me a blue pencil, she whispered. Sebastian looked away. You drew me, he said. Where is it? He drank the whiskey. Sebastian. He crossed the room, unlocked a concealed safe, and removed a small protective case. Inside was a child's drawing. A boy sat alone on stone steps beneath a crooked moon. His face was serious. His hands were hidden in his pockets. Above him, in childish handwriting, Ava had written, He looks mean, but he gave me his coat. The paper had been preserved perfectly. Ava touched the plastic covering. You kept it? Yes. For 22 years? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you did not remember me. There was no accusation in his voice, only a wound he had hidden too long. Ava looked at him. You recognized me at the waterfront, the moment you looked up, and you still sat for the portrait. I wanted to know whether you would remember. I didn't. No. She heard the loneliness in that single word. Was Vincent there too? Sebastian's face hardened. Yes. What happened? My father used the orphanage to hide money and recruit boys no one would miss. Vincent discovered it. He tried to expose him. And you? I was my father's son. You were a child. I was old enough to understand fear. Ava waited. Sebastian looked down at the drawing. My father ordered Vincent beaten. I did nothing. You were a boy. I watched. His voice remained controlled, but his hand tightened around the whiskey glass. Vincent believed I betrayed him. He escaped that night. 3 weeks later, my father burned part of the orphanage to destroy records. Ava remembered smoke, sirens, being carried through rain. Did you save me? Sebastian's eyes met hers. Yes. You carried me out. Yes. Why? His expression almost broke. Because you once drew me as if I could still become someone else. Ava stepped toward him. The storm roared around the house. Sebastian did not move as she raised her hand and touched the scar near his wrist. His breath changed. She traced the edge of it. You did become someone else, she said. Not someone better. You came for me. I will always come for you. The words left him before he could stop them. Silence followed. Ava looked into his eyes. Sebastian's hand rose slowly to her cheek. This time, he touched her. His thumb rested beneath her eye. The contact was almost unbearably gentle. He leaned closer. Ava could feel his restraint, the effort it took for a man accustomed to taking everything to wait for permission. She closed the distance. The kiss was quiet at first, a brush of his mouth against hers. Then 22 years of recognition, denial, fear, and loneliness seemed to collapse between them. Sebastian drew her against him. His control held for 3 seconds. Then it broke. He kissed her with a hunger that felt less like conquest than survival. Ava gripped his shirt. His hand moved to the back of her neck, holding her, as if the storm might tear her away. When he finally stopped, his forehead rested against hers. This changes nothing, he said. Ava breathed against his mouth. That is the least convincing thing you have ever said. The lights returned. So did the danger. Daniel entered the room, wet from the storm. We found the traitor. Sebastian stepped away from Ava, but his hand remained at her waist. Who? Daniel's expression was grim. Lena Park. Ava went cold. The gallery owner had known where Ava lived, where her work was stored, and when she visited Sebastian's penthouse. Lena had posted the portrait online. She had made Ava visible. She works for Vincent? Ava asked. Daniel nodded. For years. Ava called Lena from the safe house. Lena answered immediately. Ava. Why? A long silence followed. Then Lena began to cry. Your brother promised he only wanted Romano. You gave him my address. He said he would frighten you, nothing more. Daniel was shot. I didn't know. You posted the painting because he told you to. Yes. Ava looked at Sebastian. He stood near the window, perfectly still. Where's Vincent? She asked. I don't know. Lena. I swear. A man's voice spoke behind Lena. She is telling the truth. Ava stopped breathing. Vincent. His voice was deeper than she remembered, but the rhythm was the same. Ava, he said softly. Little star. The childhood name broke something inside her. Vincent. Sebastian's gaze fixed on the phone. I'm sorry I frightened you, Vincent said. You shot at my apartment. I shot around you. You nearly killed Daniel. He stood between me and Romano. He was protecting me. No, Romano protects possessions. Ava looked at Sebastian. His expression revealed nothing. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because Sebastian Romano's father burned children alive and built an empire from their graves. His father is dead. The empire is not. You tried to kill Sebastian at the harbor. I will kill him eventually. No. The word came instinctively. Vincent became silent. Ava felt Sebastian's attention sharpen. No, Vincent repeated. I won't let you. You are defending him. He saved my life. So did I. You used me to reach him. I used his weakness. Ava's throat tightened. Am I his weakness? Vincent laughed quietly. You are the first thing he has ever loved. Sebastian's eyes closed for one brief second. Ava stared at him. Vincent continued. And now I know exactly how to destroy him. The call ended. The attack began an hour later. Explosions struck the cliff road. The safe house shook. Emergency shutters sealed across the windows. Gunfire erupted outside. Sebastian pulled Ava behind a reinforced wall. Daniel and the guards returned fire from the corridor. How did he find us? Ava shouted. Sebastian looked toward the phone in her hand. The call. Vincent had traced it. Ava had led him there. Guilt hit her hard. Sebastian caught her face between his hands. No. I brought him here. He would have found another way. You don't know that. I know him. Another explosion tore through the lower level. Smoke filled the hallway. Sebastian removed a gun from beneath his jacket. You stay behind me. I'm not helpless. I know. Then stop treating me like I am. His gaze burned into hers. I am not protecting you because you are weak. Then why? Because I cannot breathe when I imagine this world without you. The confession hung between gunfire and smoke. Ava stared at him. Sebastian seemed almost angry that the truth had escaped. Daniel shouted from the stairs. They breached the garage. Sebastian took Ava's hand and led her through a hidden passage, descending into the cliff. Waves thundered beyond the rock walls. They reached a sea tunnel where a black boat waited. A figure emerged from the shadows. Vincent. He held a gun, but it pointed toward the floor. Ava stopped. He was older, leaner, scarred along one side of his face. Yet she recognized the boy who had once stolen birthday candles for her because no one knew the date she was born. Ava. Sebastian moved in front of her. Vincent smiled without warmth. There he is, the Prince of Ashes. You wanted me, Sebastian said. Let her leave. Vincent's gaze shifted to Ava. He still thinks this is a trade. Vincent, she said. Please. His face softened. Come with me. No. He has manipulated you. So have you. Pain crossed Vincent's expression. I protected you before he even knew how. You abandoned me. I left to survive. You could have come back. I did. Ava shook her head. Not as my brother. As a man who fired bullets through my home. Vincent raised the gun slightly. Sebastian's body tightened. I never aimed at you, Vincent said. You aimed at everyone around me. Because they belong to him. Daniel does not belong to anyone. Vincent's gaze turned cold. This is what Romano does. He puts chains around people and calls them protection. Ava looked at Sebastian. Is he wrong? Sebastian did not answer immediately. No, he said. Vincent appeared surprised. Sebastian lowered his gun. I have controlled her movements. Watched her home. Decided what dangers she was allowed to understand. Ava's chest tightened. Sebastian continued. I told myself it was necessary because losing her was unacceptable. Vincent's gun remained raised. And now? Now I know protecting her means allowing her to choose. even if she chooses to leave me. Sebastian looked at Ava. The devastation beneath his control was unmistakable. I will get you out, he said. After that, you will never see me again unless you ask. The words hurt more than Ava expected. Vincent moved closer. He is lying. No, Ava whispered. He isn't. A shot sounded from behind Vincent. Daniel appeared at the tunnel entrance. The bullet struck Vincent's shoulder. Vincent fired back. Chaos exploded. Sebastian pushed Ava behind the stone wall and advanced through the gunfire. Vincent disappeared into the smoke. Wounded, but alive. The boat carried Ava and Sebastian into the storm. They reached San Francisco before dawn. Sebastian kept his promise. He gave Ava a secure apartment, transferred ownership of the gallery into her name, and removed every guard from her sight. Then he disappeared. For 12 days, Ava did not see him. She told herself she should feel free. Instead, she noticed the empty spaces he left behind. No black SUV across the street. No silent man standing near her canvas. No calm voice telling her she was holding the brush too tightly. She returned to painting at the waterfront. Tourists recognized her now. The king in the cage had made her famous. Wealthy buyers offered absurd amounts for her work. Interviewers asked what Sebastian Romano was really like. Ava refused every question. The portrait remained inside the gallery under constant security. One night, Julian Cross attended a private showing. You look disappointed, he told her. I'm tired. You miss him. Ava turned toward the painting. I miss knowing where the danger is. Julian smiled. Men like Romano make women mistake fear for love. Ava looked at him. And men like you mistake politeness for interest. She walked away. Outside, rain fell across the city. Ava stopped beneath the gallery awning. A black car was parked across the street. Her heart lifted. Then the rear door opened. Vincent stepped out. He looked pale from blood loss, his arm in a sling. Ava should have run. Instead, she stood still. Vincent crossed the street. I came to say goodbye. You have a strange way of saying it. I am leaving the country. After you kill Sebastian? His silence answered. Ava stepped closer. Do not. He deserves to lose everything. Maybe. Vincent's face hardened. But you do not get to use me to do it. I am trying to free you. I was free the moment he let me choose. Vincent looked through the gallery window at the portrait. He bought this place because he could not bear the world seeing him through your eyes. No. He bought it because he could not bear the world reaching me through him. That is not love. What is it then? Obsession. Ava held his chaza. Sometimes love begins as the terror of losing the only person who has ever truly seen you. Vincent's jaw tightened. He will destroy you. He already destroyed himself to let me walk away. Sirens sounded in the distance. Vincent leaned close. Tomorrow night, every major family in the city will attend the Romano Foundation auction. That portrait will be sold for more than $1 million. Ava's pulse quickened. What are you planning? Vincent kissed her forehead. The end. He vanished into the rain. The Romano Foundation Gala took place inside the Palace of Fine Arts. Black cars lined the lagoon. Politicians, judges, celebrities, and criminal figures entered beneath gold lights. Security covered every entrance. The king in the cage stood on the central stage. Bidding had already reached $900,000 when Ava arrived. The room fell silent. Sebastian stood near the painting in a black tuxedo. For 12 days, she had imagined seeing him again. Nothing prepared her for the way his eyes found her across hundreds of people. He did not move. Neither did she. Then he crossed the room. Every person stepped aside. Sebastian stopped in front of Ava. You should not be here. Vincent came to me. His expression sharpened. When? Last night. You should have called. You told me you would disappear unless I asked. I did not say you should protect me from information that could get you killed. You do that constantly. A shadow of frustration crossed his face. Ava almost smiled. Almost. He is planning something tonight, she said. Sebastian looked toward Daniel. Within seconds, security shifted across the hall. What else did he say? That this was the end. Sebastian's eyes returned to hers. You need to leave. No. Ava. I am tired of being moved from one protected room to another while men decide what happens around me. He will use you. Then let him see me choose. Sebastian's voice lowered. I cannot think clearly when you are in danger. That sounds like your problem. It becomes everyone's problem. Despite everything, warmth moved through her. The auction resumed. $1 million. $1.1 million. The portrait became the most valuable work Ava had ever created. Then the lights went out. Red emergency lights illuminated the hall. Screens around the room flickered to life. Vincent's face appeared. "Good evening." Panic spread through the guests. Doors locked automatically. Gunmen emerged from the balconies. Sebastian moved in front of Ava. Vincent's voice filled the building. 22 years ago, the Romano family burned an orphanage to protect its empire. Tonight, that empire ends where the truth is displayed. Files appeared across the screens, bank records, photographs, evidence connecting Sebastian's father to murders, corruption, and trafficking. Then Vincent displayed the damaged waterfront portrait. The assassin's reflected face was visible. But behind him, barely noticeable in the glass, stood another man. Julian Cross. Ava stared. Julian was not merely an art collector. He had been at the harbor. He had directed the assassination attempt. Julian appeared beside the stage with a gun pressed against Lena Park's back. The gallery owner was crying. Vincent's voice continued. Julian Cross funded the Romano assassination and paid federal officials to erase his involvement. The original portrait proves it. Sebastian looked at Ava. She understood. The damaged portrait was hidden inside the base of the king in the cage. Lena had placed it there, on Vincent's instructions. The $1 million painting was not just art. It was a vault. Julian pulled Lena toward the stage. "Bring me the original," he ordered. Sebastian did not move. Julian pressed the gun harder against Lena. Vincent appeared on the upper balcony, his weapon aimed at Sebastian. The room became a triangle of revenge. Ava stood at its center. "Vincent," she shouted. His eyes found her. "Let everyone go. Not until Romano's empire burns. This is not justice. It is the only justice men like him understand." Julian laughed. "You still think this is your operation?" His gun shifted from Lena to Ava. Sebastian moved instantly. Julian fired. Sebastian shielded Ava with his body. The bullet struck his side. He staggered but remained standing. Ava caught him. Blood spread beneath his jacket. "Sebastian, I'm fine. You were shot. I have been shot before." Julian grabbed Ava by the arm and dragged her toward the portrait. Sebastian tried to follow. 3 gunmen blocked him. Ava struggled as Julian pressed the weapon beneath her jaw. "Open the frame," he demanded. "I don't know how." "Romano does." Julian looked at Sebastian. "Bring me the evidence, or I kill her." Sebastian stood bleeding beneath the red lights. Behind him, dozens of his men waited for an order. Vincent watched from the balcony. Ava saw what all of them wanted. The portrait. The proof. The power to destroy one another. Sebastian looked at the king in the cage. Then he looked at Ava. His expression changed. The fear disappeared. Not because he stopped being afraid, because he had made a choice. He walked toward the stage. Daniel tried to stop him. "Sebastian, the portrait is the only evidence against Cross. It clears you of the federal murders. It ends the war." Sebastian kept walking. Julian smiled. "Open it." Sebastian stopped beside the painting. Instead of opening the frame, he lifted a silver bucket from the auction display. It contained black restoration paint. Ava realized what he intended. "No," she whispered. Sebastian looked at her. In his eyes she saw the waterfront, the penthouse, the storm, the childhood drawing, and every moment he had stopped himself from touching what he feared he would destroy. Then he poured the paint across the canvas. The audience gasped. Black liquid covered the golden cage. It ran across Sebastian's painted face, across the crown, across the bars, across every detail valued at more than $1 million. The paint soaked through the outer canvas and destroyed the hidden portrait beneath it. Julian's proof disappeared. So did Sebastian's chance to clear his name, his chance to win the war, his chance to preserve the empire. He destroyed all of it. "For Ava," Julian screamed. "What did you do?" Sebastian dropped the empty bucket. "You wanted the evidence." His voice was calm despite the blood soaking his shirt. "Now no one has it." Julian's grip on Ava loosened. That was all she needed. Ava drove her elbow into his ribs and dropped. Sebastian drew a concealed weapon. A single shot struck Julian's shoulder. Daniel and the Romano guards moved. Gunfire erupted across the hall. Sebastian crossed the stage through the chaos, reached Ava, and covered her with his body. Vincent fired from the balcony. The bullet struck Julian in the chest. Julian fell beside the ruined painting. Vincent descended the stairs, gun still raised. Sebastian stood in front of Ava. Blood dripped from his hand. Vincent stopped several feet away. "You destroyed the evidence," he said. "Yes, You destroyed the only thing that could bring down Cross and clear your name. Yes. For her. Sebastian's answer came without hesitation. Yes. Vincent looked at Ava. She stepped around Sebastian. Stop this. He is still a Romano. He is not his father. He built the same empire, and tonight he burned the part that mattered most. Vincent's weapon trembled. For the first time, Ava saw not an assassin, but the abandoned boy beneath him. He watched them hurt me, Vincent said. Sebastian stepped forward. I did. Ava turned. Sebastian faced Vincent without a weapon. I was afraid, he said. I let my father break you because I believed obedience would keep me alive. Vincent's eyes shone with rage. I spent 22 years waiting to hear you admit it. I betrayed you. Yes. I cannot undo it. No. But Ava does not owe either of us her life because of what happened in that orphanage. Vincent looked at her. Sebastian continued. If you kill me, she will carry it. If I kill you, she will carry that too. The gun lowered slightly. What are you asking? Vincent said. For once, choose her instead of revenge. Silence filled the ruined gala. Sirens approached outside. Vincent looked at Ava for a long time. Then he lowered the weapon. Federal agents broke through the doors. Vincent turned toward the balcony exit. Ava caught his hand. He stopped. Come with us, she whispered. I cannot. You can surrender. He smiled sadly. You still draw endings better than the world gives them. He kissed her forehead one last time. Then he disappeared through the smoke. Sebastian collapsed before Ava could turn back. The private hospital locked down the entire top floor. Doctors operated for 4 hours. Ava sat outside the surgical suite wearing Sebastian's blood across her silver dress. Daniel stood nearby. No one spoke. At dawn, the surgeon emerged. He survived. Ava's legs nearly gave out. She entered Sebastian's room alone. He lay beneath white sheets, pale but alive. Machines monitored his heartbeat. The man feared across the West Coast, looked strangely human beneath hospital light. Ava sat beside him. Hours later, his eyes opened. He looked at her. You stayed. She almost laughed. You took a bullet for me, destroyed my most valuable painting, and nearly died. I thought staying for breakfast was reasonable. His mouth moved faintly. Was it truly worth $1 million? More. I disliked it. You bought the gallery because you disliked it? I bought the gallery because men were looking at you while standing near it. Ava shook her head. Possessive even after surgery. His gaze became serious. The evidence is gone. I know. My enemies will use the scandal. I know. The federal investigation may continue. I know. You should leave before my world closes around you again. Ava reached into her bag. She removed the childhood drawing from its protective case. You held onto this for 22 years. Yes. Why? You know why. I want to hear you say it. Sebastian looked toward the window. Emotional truth was still harder for him than blood or bullets. Ava waited. Finally, he said, because it was the last proof that someone once believed I could be good. She placed the drawing over his heart. I do not think you are good. His eyes returned to hers. I think you are dangerous, controlling, emotionally impossible, and capable of terrifying things. That sounds accurate. But I also think you chose me when choosing me cost you everything. Sebastian's breathing slowed. Ava leaned closer. I am not asking you to become harmless. What are you asking? To let me stand beside you without putting me behind glass. His eyes searched hers. You would stay? Under conditions. Name them. No surveillance without my consent. He frowned. Ava. No. Fine. No buying buildings because someone flirts with me. No. She stared at him. That was not agreement. That condition is unreasonable. Despite herself, she smiled. Sebastian touched her hand. His grip was weak but deliberate. I do not know how to love without protecting, he said. Then learn how to protect without controlling. And if I fail, I will paint another portrait. Real fear entered his eyes. Anything but that. She laughed softly and kissed him. 3 months later, the Lane Gallery reopened. The ruined king in the cage hung in the center of the main room. Ava did not restore it. Black paint still covered most of the image, but beneath the darkness, fragments of gold remained visible. Critics called it a masterpiece. They renamed it The Choice. Sebastian hated the title. He attended the opening anyway. He stood near the back in a black suit while guests moved carefully around him. His organization had changed. Several illegal operations were dismantled. Corrupt alliances were severed. Daniel became director of a legitimate security company. Sebastian had not become innocent. He had become deliberate. There was a difference. Ava found him standing before the ruined portrait after the gallery closed. Rain streaked the windows. "You are staring at yourself again," she said. "I am deciding whether to buy this building. You already gave it to me. Then I will buy the block." She stepped beside him. "You promised." "I promised not to buy buildings because men flirted with you." "And why are you buying the block?" "Several men flirted with you." Ava shook her head. Sebastian looked at the black canvas. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "The painting? The evidence? The empire? Everything you lost?" He turned toward her. "I spent my life acquiring things because I believed possession prevented loss." His hands settled at her waist. "You proved the opposite." Ava studied his face. "And Vincent?" Sebastian's expression darkened. No body had been found. No arrest had been made. Only a postcard had arrived from Prague with a blue star drawn in one corner. Ava kept it in her studio. "He is alive," Sebastian said. "You sound certain." "He sent me a message." "What did it say?" Sebastian hesitated. Ava narrowed her eyes. "What did it say?" Sebastian removed a folded card from his pocket. On it, Vincent had written, "If you cage her again, I will come back." Ava smiled. Sebastian did not. "I dislike your brother. He dislikes you too. I am aware." The gallery lights dimmed automatically. Only the portrait remained illuminated. Ava took Sebastian's hand and led him toward the private studio. Inside, a new canvas waited beneath a white cloth. Sebastian stopped. "What is that?" "Your replacement portrait." "No. You have not seen it. I do not need to." Ava pulled away the cloth. The painting showed the San Francisco waterfront at dawn. Sebastian stood near the harbor. No crown, no golden cage, no armed men. Ava stood beside him. Their hands did not quite touch. Behind them, the fog was lifting. Sebastian stared at the canvas. For once, he had no answer. Ava moved beside him. "What do you see?" His gaze remained on the painting. "A man who does not deserve to be there." "That is not what I painted." "What did you paint?" "A man who stayed." Sebastian looked at her. The feared Mafia boss who had commanded cities, ended wars, and destroyed a fortune without hesitation seemed unable to breathe. He touched her cheek. This time, he did not stop himself. "I love you," he said. No performance. No threat. No possession. Only truth. Ava leaned into his hand. "I know." His eyes narrowed. "That is all?" She smiled. "I love you too." The restraint in his face broke. Sebastian pulled her into his arms and kissed her beneath the soft studio lights while rain whispered against the windows. Outside, San Francisco disappeared beneath fog. Black cars waited along the curb. Danger still existed beyond the gallery doors. Enemies remained. Old sins could not be painted over, simply because a man finally chose love. But inside the studio, Sebastian stood before a portrait that did not show him as a king or a monster. It showed him as a man beside the woman who had seen every darkness inside him and still demanded that he become more than it. Ava rested her forehead against his. "No cages," she whispered. Sebastian's hand tightened gently around hers. "No cage. And no buying the block." He looked through the studio window at the buildings across the street. "I make no promises." She laughed against his mouth. Then he kissed her again as the fog lifted over the harbor, revealing the first line of sunrise across the water. On the studio wall, beside the new portrait, hung a child's drawing of a lonely boy beneath a crooked moon. For 22 years, Sebastian had kept it because it reminded him that someone once believed he could become a different man. Now he no longer needed the reminder. She was standing in his arms.